Hello, I'm John Roda, Environmental Manager for West Bloomfield Township, and I'm here for another exciting edition of Wetland and Watershed Management Education slideshow presentation that I'm going to show. And basically this is going to be a wetland stewardship slideshow of where West Bloomfield lies here in the township in relationship to the landscape, watersheds that we are in, wetlands that are here in West Bloomfield, the importance of wetlands here in the West Bloomfield, how they're protected, why we protect them, and also the values, the functions, and the reasonings for the protection. So for that, I'm going to start the slideshow. Wetland Stewardship, West Bloomfield Township, Michigan, a local enforcing agency, Environmental Department, John T. Roda. Situation analysis. The Charter Township of West Bloomfield happens to be located within the southern central portion of Oakland County, within 3 different watersheds. Northern headwaters of the Rouge watershed, southwestern section of the Clinton watershed, northeastern section of the Huron watershed. West Bloomfield Township watershed map. Here you can see where West Bloomfield, this is a map of West Bloomfield Township and as it lies within 3 different watersheds. Light blue is the Rouge watershed on the southern portion. On the western portion in the yellow or tan is the Huron watershed, and the northern section of the township within the pink area is the Clinton watershed. Within these 3 watershed areas, West Bloomfield alone obtains 26 lakes, 2,500 to 3,000 acres of protected wetlands. Many of Michigan's watersheds have been subjected to disturbance since European settlement due to human activities such as draining the land for farming and development. Continuing development does have a continuing effect within these watersheds. However, West Bloomfield Township has a program in place to minimize the negative effects. There are 5 environmental ordinances that have been passed in the township to protect these watersheds and their important functions. A wetland ordinance, environmental feature setback ordinance, fertilizer ordinance, grading, soil erosion, and sedimentation control ordinance, and a woodland ordinance. The wetland ordinance, section 12 of our ordinances. All of the township rivers, lakes, streams, floodplain, and wetlands are protected by this local ordinance. Some activities are strictly prohibited in all wetlands, such as vegetation disturbance, altering of the wetland, which means filling or cutting into a wetland, shoreline control, and the application of fertilizers, to name a few. In most cases, site-specific conditions must be reviewed by the Township Wetland Review Board and or the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality for permit requests. Wetlands. Wetlands are a major feature of the landscape in almost all parts of the world. Although many cultures have lived among and even depended on wetlands for centuries, the modern history of wetlands is fraught with misunderstanding and fear. Wetlands have disappeared at alarming rates throughout the developed and developing worlds. Now their many values are being recognized, and wetland protection is the norm in many parts of the world. Wetlands have properties that are not adequately covered by present terrestrial and aquatic ecology, suggesting that there is a case to be made for wetland science as a unique discipline encompassing many fields, including terrestrial and aquatic ecology, chemistry, hydrology, and engineering. Wetlands are unique because of their hydrologic connections and their role as ecotones between terrestrial and aquatic systems. Wetland management, as the applied side of wetland science, requires an understanding of the scientific aspects of wetland balanced with legal, institutional, and economic realities. As interest in wetlands grow, so do professional societies that are concerned with wetlands, as well as the amount of journals and literature about wetlands. And here are a few pictures. This is our trail network, the entrance of the trail network on one side of, I believe it's Arrowhead Road. And here is the observation deck to one of our famous popular herring rookery, and off in the distance you can see the actual herring nests up in the trees. There's some more nests. And more of an open view. Wetlands function. The kidneys of the landscape, because they're considered the kidneys of the landscape because they function as the downstream receivers of water and waste from both natural and human sources. They stabilize water supplies, thus improving floods and drought. They cleanse polluted waters, filter out nutrients and sediments, protect shorelines, and recharge groundwater aquifers. They're also known as biological supermarkets because of all the extensive food chain and rich biodiversity that they support, provide unique habitats for a wide variety of flora and fauna. Wetlands value. Wetlands are among the most important ecosystems on Earth, valuable as sources, sinks, and transformers of a multitude of chemical, biological, and genetic materials. Valuable for fish and wildlife protection that has been known for several decades. Value versus function. Value is in the eye of the beholder. A wetland's value depends on its function. And here's a picture of a pond-type wetland ecosystem, or wetland system, if you will. A marsh, wet meadow, forested wetland, scrub shrub wetland, lake or lacustrine type wetland, and also riverine or river or stream type wetland. And all those different types of wetlands have different types of functions to them and different characteristics, either that being the way they get water, the way they hold water, what type of vegetation grows there, what type of wildlife the vegetation attracts there. It all depends on those types of, these are just to name a few. Wetland delineation. Recognizing a wetland. There are so many different types of wetlands, the scrub shrub, the emergent, the open water, the forested, etc., that they are often difficult to recognize. However, an understanding of some basic wetland characteristics can help to identify wetlands. Under normal conditions, wetlands should exhibit at least 2 out of the 3 of the following characteristics. And this is by state and township standards. Evidence of wetland hydrology. When standing water is not present and obvious, some common indicators of wetland hydrology are watermarks at the bases of trees, drift lines of branches and leaves that they have been pushed against the trees or vegetation by water. The bases of trees are broader than the middle and seem to be grasping the earth, gasping the earth. Dark water-stained leaves on the ground. In areas of bare soil, indicating that standing water exists at the surface for for a relatively long time, and usually that's around 14 or more days. Water-loving hydrophytic vegetation, so water-loving vegetation. Some common tree types to look for in wooded wetlands are silver maple, willow species, American elm, and green ash. Some common plant types to look for in many wetlands are sensitive fern, blue vervain, common reed, bulrushes, spotted touch-me-not, purple loosestrife, and cattails. Hydric soil. Soils that have been saturated by water for a prolonged period of time during the growing season, about 14 or more days, will exhibit certain color characteristics. Usually found under an organic muck or a topsoil layer, hydric soils are a grayish color, sometimes with yellowish orange spots, those are called mottles. The Environmental Features Setback Ordinance. A 25-foot natural area that is preserved between the upland areas and the water resources, such as wetlands, lakes, and streams, is called the Environmental Features Setback here in the township. This buffer provides an important zone of natural vegetation that acts as a filter for pollutants before they enter the water from upland sources. This setback area also provides crucial breeding and hiding habitat for wildlife such as amphibians. This area is to be left in its natural state in order to provide the most benefits. You will need a permit through the Wetland Review Board if you want to alter this setback in any way. That's vegetation removal, structure installation, alter the landscape at any way to enter this area. To do anything will require a permit. Here are some pictures of the environmental feature setback adjacent to lake and marsh-type wetland. This was something that the township came across quite a few years back that was cleared out without a permit. After the permit was received to restore the area, these are the pictures of the area coming back to a restored situation. After being planted with the right type of seed mix, shrubs, and trees within the setback, this preservation area was left to be untouched so that the area becomes back restored, so it gives the proper functions and protection to the wetland and lake area. Here's a picture of the township staking out the ordinary high water mark during a seawall installation project. And before the seawall actually goes in, we need to stake out the ordinary high water mark so that the seawall doesn't go too far out in the water and actually stays along the landscape. And here's a picture of some restoration area or enhancement area, if you will, of the environmental features set back down to the water of where that seawall was going to be installed. And a few more pictures. And in top two, you can actually see where the seawall has been installed. And the front of that seawall has been installed according to our staking of where the front of the seawall needs to be. Next is the fertilizer ordinance. Manufactured fertilizers contain nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus can be detrimental to wetlands, streams, and lakes. Excess nutrients that residents apply to their lawns and gardens can wash off into these water bodies and cause plant growth to accelerate, resulting in nuisance algae blooms in the water. This process depletes aquatic systems of oxygen and reduces the sunlight that reaches aquatic plants, thereby threatening aquatic habitats. Algae blooms also decrease the aesthetic qualities and recreational opportunities we enjoy in lakes, wetlands, and streams. All fertilizer companies must be certified and registered through the township, and there's no fertilizing allowed before May 1st and after November 1st. No fertilizing allowed within 25 feet from any wetland, lake, or stream. The Grading, Soil Erosion, and Sedimentation Control Ordinance. Sedimentation from soil erosion is the greatest polluter of our wetlands, streams, and lakes. During and after a rainstorm event, small particles of soil are washed over pavement through pipes and into water, where the sediment blocks light, prevents growth of plants, carries nutrients, pollutants, and clogs the gills of aquatic animals. Anytime land is cleared of vegetation, soil erosion control measures are necessary. Installation and proper maintenance of silt fences or revegetating materials are examples of techniques to prevent soil erosion. For these reasons, all building sites require a grading, soil erosion control review and permit. In addition, all wetland permits require soil erosion and sedimentation control measures to be installed prior to any work. Here are a few pictures of soil erosion controls hard at work, holding back soil, keeping it on site, and not flowing into, not giving it a chance to flow into protected area. Where the two gentlemen are standing there on the other side of the fence is all regulated woodlands, and not too far into those woodlands we have the regulated 25-foot setback and wetland area. Here's another picture to show more of the wetland area that's within the protected woodland. If you can see on the back side, there's also it goes all the way around this wooded area and comes up the back side where there's other lots up for development. This is actually a developed subdivision already, Carrington Gardens off of Maple Road. And that's the entrance of Carrington Gardens when it was being developed. Soil erosion controls holding back all the disturbance on the right-hand side from entering the protected area and preserved wetland area on the left-hand side. And that's another looking north. The previous picture was looking south off of Maple Road. Now we're looking at north towards Maple Road. And three more pictures. The upper left is actually wetland creation. It's actually a retention or detention, I can't remember. I think it was retention basin, which was designed to act as a natural wetland area. And now it's seeded and planted and doing quite well, actually. And the other two pictures are just other two areas within the township of protected area and how we protect it from our building sites. Invasive species. Common invasive species of plants, mainly here is what I'm going to talk about, that we find in our wetland areas, is glossy buckthorn, Phragmites australis, and purple loosestrife. And glossy buckthorn, a picture of the glossy buckthorn leaf and berry. The fruit that it produces is on the top right. In the middle is the Phragmites, and in the bottom right is the purple loosestrife. So this vegetation probably looks quite familiar to most, especially in this area. And normally what needs to happen if, well, it needs to happen if someone chooses to do this on their property within their wetland area, which will require also a permit, is eradication of the invasive species. So first I'm going to talk about eradication and then restoration of the area. Eradication involves the proper removal or treatment of invasive species. After the invasive is eradicated, restoration is in order. When restoring with vegetation, planted vegetation must be native to Michigan and indigenous to the area, meaning that it's always been found naturally in history to the area. One thing we don't want to see is invasives, or not invasives, but cultivars, hybrid plant species that landscapers just happen to grow to sell, to plant around your house or spruce up the yard a little bit. One thing with restoration is you want to make sure you're planting native indigenous species to the wetland area or the woodland area, depending on what you're restoring. You got to make sure that you're using the correct plant species. You don't want anything hybrid. Otherwise, it could multiply and take over an area, and we don't want that. Next, I'm going to talk about a quick study that was done from the Society of Wetland Scientists, their wetlands manual, one of their volumes, 22 of their wetlands manual back in 2002. This is a study done by Catherine Werner and Joy Zedler, and it's how sedge meadow soils, microtopography, and vegetation respond to sedimentation. The urbanization of watersheds degrades wetlands by altering surface water flows and sedimentary loads, losses in vegetation, increase in impermeable surfaces, exposure to soil. Wetland downstream experience amplified peak stormwater flows, increased erosion, and augmented sediment loading. The result after their study was that there was a native species decline. Species-rich wet prairies of sedge meadows characteristica, which is hummock sedge, and fens tend to become monotypic stands of phalaris, which is reed canary grass, or typha species, which is more broad or narrow-leafed cattail. High sedimentation rates are known to bury organisms and affect germination rates of wetland species. The sediment influx can potentially alter several physical soil properties that comprise the microenvironment of plants, including organic matter, content, and bulk density. Microtopographic variation is lost, and lost species richness is possible number of rare species, hence altering the native remnants communities altogether. And then for discussion, wetlands are effective sinks for non-point source pollution, including sediments, associated nutrients, and pollutants from urban and rural developments. However, as sediment loads increase, there are costs for these services. When a load becomes too great, the wetland is no longer able to protect downstream waters. Their evidence regarding the impacts of sediment accumulation indicates that natural remnants are critically overburdened by the non-point source pollution of current land use practices. Unless activities in the watersheds change, they predict that the regional sedge meadows will fill in with sediment and native species assemblages will be replaced by invasive species. And they recommend that managers, as myself, try to reverse these trends by seizing opportunities to restore ecological integrity in remnants and to reduce soil loss and stormwater runoff throughout the watershed. And I'm John Roda. This actually says Environmental Code Inspector. I'm the Environmental Manager now for West Bloomfield Township. Wetland delineation, assessment, compliance, concerns, inspections, woodland assessment, compliance, concerns, inspections, soil erosion and sedimentation control review, assessment, compliance, and inspections. And to contact me at the office is 248-451-4818. And our mission statement is the Environmental Department is committed to protecting, restoring, and enhancing the natural resources of West Bloomfield Township for current and future generations using approaches and solutions based on science, best management practices, collaboration, and respect for all the stakeholders involved. Credits for pictures that I used and some of the text that I used. Thank you very much.